a server, and I also have a connection to this server, and you can see that we already have some databases on here, but we want to start from scratch. So we're gonna create a brand new database. We can easily do that by right-clicking on the databases node and choosing new database. Here we can give it a name. I call this MyDB. That's about all we need. The underlying files that make up this database, there are two of them: a primary file where all of our data and our objects go, and a log file, which is essentially a staging area for all modification to data and objects. That way we can roll forward and roll backward any changes that happen in this database. So this was good. We'll hit OK. And that's all there is to it. We can now have a fresh empty database ready to go. Our next step is to create some database objects. Specifically here, we need some tables so we can put some data inside of this database. You can see currently there are no tables inside of here, and there are a couple of ways to do this. We can use a structured query language, which is what we're gonna do here. So I've got a couple scripts that we're gonna walk through. To create these tables, you can also use the GUI, the graphical user interface. Here there are designs associated with almost every database object. This is a nice, easy way to do it graphically. Enter your column name. Choose your data type if you wish to allow empty values or not what are known as nulls. And then you can set properties for each column that you define. So that is the one way to do it, but of course using the GUI doesn't make it very repeatable. Using the structured query language, we can easily create these tables at any moment. So we're going to use the create table statement DDL, the data definition language, to create all four of these tables. Notice we have a customer tables and products and orders table and in orders detail table. Now creating this table is pretty straightforward. Here in SQL, we specify our column name followed by our data type, and also notice that we're designated the primary key for this first three tables. We want yet for this last tape, I'm going to show you how we can do that using database diagram. So I'm gonna go ahead and execute this. We actually need to switch our database here to make sure that these tables are created in this MyDB database. Alright, so we have pointed the script and this database. Now let me hit execute. It will create all four of those tables, and if we refresh our tables, note we should see them all right there. And there, all currently empty. We'll get some data them shortly, but the first thing we want to do is finish our database design here. We're gonna use the database diagram to do this. I'll choose new database diagram. I will add all four of these tables into it. And another thing we need to do here is set up relationships between these tables, and using a database diagram is a nice easy way to do this. So here are all of these tables. We got one more over here. So this is the tables, and yeah, and then bring of this into view. Now whenever you click on an item over here, we can give it a right click. We can choose to view the properties, and now we can see the properties of this column, and you can modify any of the properties here. One thing we need to do is make primary keys of this in auto number field, and actually known as identity column. So look at the properties here, identify specification. We just want to turn this on, and it automatically increment this value starting at 1 sequentially every time. A new record is added. We're gonna do the same thing here for our product ID. We're gonna click yes, and then in our product ID in our products table, I'll do the same thing here for our order ID. Now order details is a different piece entirely because we don't need an auto number field, since the combination of order ID and product ID will be unique. So the first thing we need to do here is to designate both of those as a primary key together, which is known as the composite primary key. So I I highlighted both of those. We can give this right click and choose to set primary key, and now the combination of both those is the primary key. So that will guarantee unique records in that table. Another thing we need to do is here configure relationships. We have a relationship here between product and product idea. You can just drag those columns on top of each other, and this will show as primary key table and our foreign key table, and the columns that are linked together. We can hit OK, and then there are look at we can now have the relationship link ready to go. Take a look at our orders here. We can see our orders. Look at that, we've got some orders so to work with, and we can also look at order details, and this will show us the quantity that was ordered for each product, and notice that a single order can contain multiple products. So we have a database, we have some tables, and we place some data into those tables. The next step is to write a query to make sense of all of that data. We're gonna point this query at our database. Here now we can execute it and look at that. What it's going to do is bring back all the products. The total cost. Notice here we have this sums. This is actually rolling up all of this data. We use aggregate functions to do just combine with a group by a clause, which in this case is grouping on the name of the product and then just rolling all that data up into a summary. So this could easily be a query that powers a report or a web page. In fact, we could even turn this into a stored procedure and parameterize it so people can search for specific products or search for specific values for all this aggregated data. Could also transform this into a view and then provide users with access to this view so they could create their own reports. So based on this data, and that's actually very easy to do using the structured query language. Watch this. We'll do a create view, a little more detail here, and give our view a name. How about a product sales summary? And then all we need is an S here. And then this query will define the body for this view. I'll execute this, it'll create the view, and now create the view. And now we can use SQL and treat this view just like a table. Select star or asterisk or splat, that just means return all columns from instead of table here. We specify our view, which is right there, product sales summary. Now we can execute just that line of code and look at the same results that just executed the query within that view, and that's why a view is really just a stone query. Ready for this view, I'll execute this, I'll create the view, and now we can use SQL and treat this view just like a table. Select a star or asterisk or splat, that just means return all columns for instead of table here. We specify our view, which is right there, product sales summary. Now we can execute those, and is really just stored a query.